June 27, 2016 meeting of the Agenda Charter Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Chairwoman Conley.
Present.
Mr. Delahanty.
Here.
Mr. Moyo.
Here.
Ms. Taylor.
Here.
Mr. Wilcox.
Here.
Is there anyone signed up for the public forum?
There is not.
Is there anyone present who is not signed up to speak but who would like to address the committee at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the minutes. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. You have the May 23rd, 2016 minutes before you. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day. The next item on the agenda is new business. Madam Clerk?
Referral 16-0188, restoring transparency and accountability to the Monroe County budget.
Moved by Legislator Moyo, seconded by Legislator Wilcox. Legislator Cayley is the maker of this motion. Would you like to address the committee?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for allowing this to come before committee. Briefly, for those that have been with the legislature for some time, they'll be familiar with this. In 2006, the Brooks administration, along party lines, changed the budget review process in what could be considered a very major way. The budget details would not be released until the week following November elections. What did this accomplish? According to the administration at that time, it seeked to take the politics out of the budget, but in many minds it did not. Some would say yes, and others would say no. Resoundingly, this move hid the changes and movements of the budget process from the taxpayers of Monroe County. Little or no time was given to solicit feedback and public input within the budget process. And as a result, the public has been out of the loop with regards to issues that have been funded through chargebacks and other fees with regards to the budget for the continuing year. Monroe County has not been transparent with the budget process in this way since 2006. And as we now have the opportunity to return to a responsible schedule, I would urge my fellow legislators to vote in the affirmative for this referral. Please do not say that more time is needed, that as prior to 2006 the process worked. Do not say that politics are involved, as we are the only government in the area that I know of that actually conduct our budget open hearings in this scheduled fashion. And finally, rather say yes to a process revision that will allow us all to be transparent, ethical, and accountable to the citizens of Monroe County and the finances that we are in charge of handling. If there are any questions, I can answer.
Is there any further discussion? Legislator Delahanty.
Yes. The current process has worked, and it's worked well over the past decade. New York State provides numbers regarding the property tax cap that play a significant role in the Monroe County budget. More often than not, these numbers come in late at the ending of the year. Without factoring those numbers into the budget, which is only possible with our current deadline, the county would look like it's making draconian cuts that simply is not making. The Democratic proposal adds politics into the process by moving the budget deadline before Election Day. As the system is designed now, the budget process is a serious and deliberative process. Legislators are able to ask questions about the budget passes through committees without partisan rancor. I will be voting against this evening. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion?
Excuse me, Madam Chair, am I allowed to say one more thing?
Usually, I guess, okay.
Thank you. I would just
Say that in response to any statement that said for the last decade it's been working properly, that may well be true in the eyes of half of this legislative body. But in fact, this change was done in 2006 and had previously been installed in the correct format that I'm proposing since at least 1983. And since 2006, there have been any number of things that have come before this legislature that have been considered not transparent, not ethical, and not good judgment made by this government. And therefore, it is time to make the process more transparent. Thank you.
I have a question for the administration. Can you just touch briefly on how the Taxpayer Protection Act has affected the budget process?
Madam Chair, Bob Franklin, Department of Finance. The Taxpayer Protection Act was enacted locally in 2008 after the date change noted in this particular referral. With the Taxpayer Protection Act, the cost of non-mandated services in our adopted budget cannot exceed the rate of inflation compared to last year's adopted budget. Taxpayer Protection Act calculation is dependent upon the Consumer Price Index, that the 12-month rolling CPI for all urban consumers for the past 12 months. I would suggest, since I came to this role in January of 2013, that a change seeking an earlier adoption of the budget certainly would make it, without seeming self-serving, would make it much more difficult on my part in the entire budget office, as we really rely on the CPI ticking up a little bit during the latter portion of the summer and early fall. If over the past several years, and even today, continuing probably for the very near future, the CPI has been running close to zero, Madam Chair. I think last year it was 0.2%. And it was 0.2% after the September CPI was published in mid-October. Had it not been, had we not had the ability to submit a budget in November, we would have had to finish the budget process in September and not receive the benefit of that October CPI. Otherwise, we would be looking at a 0% increase. And with a short turnaround for an October submission, we would have had to make some pretty strong budget cuts and not a lot of time to think about the implications of those budget cuts.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. At this time, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Mr. Delahanty?
No.
Mr. Moyo?
Yes.
Ms. Taylor?
No.
Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Chairwoman Conley?
No.
2 to 3, referral fails.
The next item on the agenda is other matters. Legislator Taylor, with respect to referral 16-0155. Is there a second? Thank you. Is there any discussion on this referral? At this time, I'm sorry, we need to vote on the motion to lift from the table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. At this time, now that it has been restored to the table, I would ask if there's any discussion or if President Daniele would like to address the committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know that Vice President Carbone did a good job introducing this last month, and I know it was tabled for more time to be considered for the last month. As we know, one of the duties of President is to submit a work plan for the legislative cycle, which lasts 2 years and started this past January. So as is tradition, I have submitted this 2016 work program for the legislature of the County of Monroe, State of New York. The objective of the plan is to establish the legislature's general purpose to the community, a planning document, if you will, that outlines some of the priorities, certainly not all the priorities, but some of the priorities of this legislative body and things for us as a body to focus on for this legislative cycle that is 2 years. So I am happy to answer any questions. I know I have reached out to legislators on both sides of the aisle for input, had some good discussions, and at this time would ask this committee to pass the work plan, and at which point it would be considered at general legislature in 2 weeks.
Is there any other further discussion? Legislator Moyo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In reading the charter under C29H, it states that there shall be an agenda committee which shall be responsible for developing a work program of major policy concerns. Now that's in conjunction with the article, the section of Article 2 that's been referenced by the President. So I guess I would ask the chairwoman of this committee whether there is a work plan that's been developed by the Agenda Charter Committee.
The work plan that's been developed is the referral that was submitted by President Daniele. That's attached to the communication of May 9th, 2016, which sets forth the 6 different priorities. And so the reason that it was tabled was to offer any legislators who wanted to comment or request changes the opportunity to do so.
So there's no separate work plan coming out of the agenda committee?
The work plan is what is attached right here, the referral. That is,
okay.
yes, yes. Is Legislator Wilcox.
Thank you. So my question is this, then what is the meaning of the section of the charter that states that this committee shall develop, it actually uses the word develop, it doesn't say approve, it says develop a work program.
Again, the reason that the original procedure, or I'm sorry, the original referral was tabled was to allow for comment.
This committee to do its job?
And we allowed for comment for 30 days.
So
We received no comment.
So we didn't, as a committee, want to develop a work plan as is required under the charter, is that correct?
The work plan that is before you is what was put forth.
By the president?
That is correct, who is an ex officio member of this committee. We were given 30 days to submit any commentary or requested changes.
Okay, so we chose not to.
That is correct. Any other further discussion? Legislator Moyo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Point number 2, they're not labeled, but spending reductions seems to be very focused on unfunded mandates. Is it possible we might want to change the heading of spending reductions? It seems like a rather draconian part of the work program to simply reduce spending when the body of that is mainly talking about unfunded mandates. So they're very specific spending reductions and not in general, which sounds like we're just cutting budgets all over the place.
Well,
Yeah, I'm happy to respond if that's okay.
yes,
Madam
Mr.
Chairwoman.
President Daniele.
Yeah, and I appreciate Legislator Muyo's point that he's trying to make. However, the work plan is a general planning document, and if you look on the second page, another bullet point under spending reductions is to also encourage use of intermunicipal agreements, shared agreements, and I guess as a general rule, although there are bullet points, to your point that it's very specific, the first bullet point talking about unfunded mandates, the general point is for this body, as it considers matters that come before it, to look for opportunities to make spending reductions either in these 2 specific points or in general. So again, it is a general planning document.
Is there any other further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there opposed? Is there any opposed?
Opposed.
I think we'll just do a roll call vote.
Mr. Delahanty?
Yes.
Mr. Moyo?
No.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox? Chairwoman Conley?
Yes.
3-2 referral passes.
Are there any other matters to come before this committee? Seeing none, there being no other matters, the June 27th, 2016 meeting of the Agenda Charter Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Agenda Charter Committee will be held on Monday, July 18th at 5 p.m.